bearings, wheels, trucks. The world is crazy and we're about to make sense of it for you. I'm Chris J. Rosser with bcsurf.com, and in this video we're going to talk about how to choose a longboard. Now the first off stuff we want to cover is just some general guidelines for your longboard search. And remember, a lot of this comes down to your personal preference. If you happen to like a certain type or something, that's fine. There's not a lot of wrong answers here. It's what fits you best. But a couple of general guidelines just to keep in mind are the following. For starters, the longer the board generally means it's a little bit more stable. However, it can't turn as sharply as other ones. It's kind of vice versa with a shorter board. If you have a tiny little board, they can turn pretty tightly, but as they speed up, they might lose some stability. You've also got stuff like a drop-through deck. That's kind of like on this Dervish Sama right here, where the truck is kind of set in the middle, where it kind of drops through. Those also tend to be a little bit more stable, but a little bit better for slide and for higher speed stuff like hills. However, they don't carve quite as hard and have that quite really tight turning capacity that a top mount has. And that's where the trucks are just mounted and the deck's right on top. Also, if you have larger wheels, tend to roll it a little bit longer, but for most completes, the wheels it come with is usually a pretty good fit for it. And lastly, some boards out there have flex, and while a good amount of flex can give you a nice springy carvy style, it can be a little unstable on higher speeds. But that's just some general guidelines to help you out in your search. And now, let's try to narrow it down as we talk about longboard style. One of the most common things we hear from riders is they want something to kind of cruise around on. And here's the truth about cruising is that pretty much every longboard can cruise. They're all kind of set up with soft wheels, they've got a good size, they can go the distance. And yeah, sure, some are kind of better than others, but that's going to be a lot dependent on your personal preference. Some people, they'll want a top mount deck because they like to have a lot of carve while they're cruising. Some guys want a really low deck just so they're not bending over very far to get that board to keep pushing. It's kind of up to you on the cruising front. So we're going to try to narrow it down, depending that, yeah, everyone wants to cruise, but what else do you want to do with it? And the first one to start off is with carving. And this is kind of a nice surfy style. We're hitting some hard carves, either along flatland and maybe on some hills. One of our top choices has been this Sector 9, the Sidewinder series. We've got these awesome double trucks that really let you crank this board over farther than a normal truck with just one kingpin would allow. Gives great response, and even on a larger size, can really hit some good carves. They usually come up with these slalom wheels too, and we'll get to those wheels in a little bit, but they give you a really, really great carve. Another popular choice guys kind of cruising, carving around has been little pennies, and these have kind of been a nice phenomenon for the past year. Tiny little boards, and just like we talked about in kind of the guidelines, is that short little board can turn really tight. They're matched up with a pretty big wheel for its size, and kind of a retro throwback, kind of having some fun, hit some little carves on it. Next type of style that we're kind of checking out is freestyle, and this combines a bunch of different practices, everything from flatland dancing to tricks, a little bit of slides worked in there. We've got one example over here, which is the Dervish Sama. It's kind of a solid one, that big concaves through it. What you see a lot of these boards is not only usually kind of run to the middle to large size, kind of like think about 38 inches up to about 43, 44, but you also have these little kicks in here. This style really focuses on a lot of tricks, and you need a board set up for that. Generally, these boards have a little bit of flex on it too. That way, as you're landing tricks, you have a little bit of flex out, and it's not going to just buck you off or be too hard where it's going to be a shock to your landing. These boards also tend to function pretty well as kind of like an all-arounder since they open you up to so many different styles. If you're looking to do a little bit of slide, if you're looking to do a little bit of this, they'd be great choices for testing a lot of different things out and kind of figuring out where your strengths really lie. Next one to kind of check out are the slide boards. Slide boards are generally kind of constructed from pretty stiff material, have really aggressive concaves to really lock your feet in there. Usually they're all drop mounted, because that way you get you nice and low to the ground for stability. Also helps slide entry. They also have a really, really rough grip to them. These boards function well at higher speeds. We're going to be kind of cruising down hills, hitting garages that have a pretty steep sauna, or even just trucking it down flatland. And these boards are meant to get sideways and slide through things, whether it's for performance slides, checking your speed on hills or something. These boards are meant to get through some pretty crazy stuff. Mostly they all come with reverse kingpin trucks also. This is a good blend of carving ability and stability. You kind of like work that degree angle there. The higher degree angle on these trucks means that you have better carving potential, but a little less stability as it gets faster. A lower degree number means that you can have a little bit more stability, but you are sacrificing some of your quick carving ability. But again, these are really solid boards for carving. The example I've got here is a Lanyard's 925. It's one that you can really crank through some slides and really excels at that area of riding. Another category of longboards to think about is if you've got a lot of hills in your neighborhood and you really like going fast and screaming down them, is the downhill stuff. This is going to be similar to slide and kind of free ride boards, and some of them overlap a lot, as slide is definitely part of downhill. But these are usually super duper stiff boards, incredibly gruff grip, big concaves to lock your feet in while you're moving super duper fast. There's a good blend between top mounts and drop through, but a lot of times you'll see this, which has this little dip in the deck, gets you lower to the ground. And that's kind of the name of the game, is lower to the ground, more stability. A lot of times you'll see on these big wheels that have nice hard edges and a big contact patch to make sure you're gripping the road, even at super duper high speeds. Some of them will have different angles depending on the truck to kind of stabilize it, kind of reducing your truck to degree angle, and that's just to stabilize you as you're going faster. But this is really meant for someone that's going for super high speeds on big hills, and the example I have here is the Bustin' Eibach. This one's really good for a lot of high-speed application. You want to mix in some slides there too. It's pretty solid, but definitely meant to be going down a hill really, really fast. Next point in longboarding is we're kind of focused on some wheel stuff, just to kind of give you kind of a general knowledge on wheels. There's a couple main styles out there. The first one is like this one, the Sector 9 or the Bustin' Eibach, which is kind of referred to as a slalom style wheel. It's got a hard edge out here, usually a side set bearing to it. We also have kind of this like rolled edge wheel, which is the edge of the wheel is more rolled than really hard. The benefits to the first one, the slalom style wheel, is they usually come in a pretty soft duro, which gives it a lot of grip. Now, if you haven't really heard of durometer, it's basically how hard or soft the wheel is. Generally speaking, the harder the wheel is, it'll be more durable and it'll slide out easier, but it's not going to have that grip to it. If you're looking for more slide-friendly style, you might want to stick to like the higher duros, like 83, 86 or higher. And that'll give you kind of an easy slide initiation. It's not going to quite grip the road. So if you're looking for a pretty carvy style where you want to hold that road, hold the line, check out some of the softer duros, maybe like 80, 78, somewhere around there. And of course, depending on style, it can change a couple things there too. With the slalom style, you're really going to hold that edge. With a rolled edge wheel, it's easier to get slides started right after you get them. Usually a slalom edge one, kind of like this one, takes a little bit of braking before it really gets a nice smooth slide to it. So it's kind of depending on your preference. And like we said in the general guidelines, like the bigger wheels usually roll a little bit longer. But we want to kind of match it up to your board. So the first thing is, whatever board you're choosing, you want to make sure the size wheel is not going to hit that board when you're turning. That causes wheel bite. You'll go flying while the board stops. It causes a bunch of stuff. We don't want that to happen. So make sure that the wheel is going to work. If you've got big cutouts, like this Dervish Summit, you got these big, huge cutouts, you can put a little bit bigger wheel on it. However, if you got something with a little bit wider nose and tail shape, you might need to go a little bit smaller. Something to also consider is that a smaller wheel is also a little bit more responsive since it can change directions a little bit faster. If you want more of a quick, carvy, skating style, you might want to just hold it back and kind of go with a reasonably small one or kind of right in the middle, just so you can carve nice and quickly. However, if you're on really rough asphalt, you might want that big chunky wheel with a full thing of urethane. That way it provides some cushion and you kind of keep rolling over that rough asphalt. Now, another thing we want to talk about in longboarding is truck style, and there's a lot of different trucks out there. So we're going to kind of go through some of the major ones just to give you some info in there. We have like the standard ones, kind of like you see those on street decks. This Penny has it. The Kingpin's almost straight up, and these are kind of good for kind of a general, kind of like a skatey feel to it. You mostly see these on smaller boards also, and they kind of capitalize on quick turning, and they're also pretty good if you kind of want to mix in a little bit of street style in there with ollies and some other stuff. You've also got the double Kingpin trucks, like on these sidewinders, really super carvy. If you're looking for a carvy style, you like to pump a lot, make sharp turns, or like 90-degree sidewalks on campuses or stuff like that. Those work really well. For the most of the longboards, however, have a reverse Kingpin style, and you can see that, like this Dervish Sama with the bears on it, this Bustin' with the calibers on it, and these offer a good mix of stability and carving potential. Now, the reverse Kingpins have a lot of stuff kind of going on with them, anywhere from the size, degrees, and even flippable hangers. So let's start off with the size. The most kind of general, right down the middle of the road that we've seen in a lot of companies is about 180 millimeters. It's a good blend of it's wide enough to be stable, but it carves quickly too. You can go a little bit bigger if you feel like you need a little bit more stability in your ride, or even smaller if you want to get a quicker reaction to it. One of the best examples is the loaded fat tail, which kind of moves down to a 150 millimeter truck. Gives you that quicker response that kind of goes along with that board, as it's meant to be a quick carver. You also have degrees in all these trucks. Generally, the higher the degree, the better the carving, but it might be slightly less stable. And it's exactly vice versa. The lower the degree, it's going to be more stable, but it's not quite going to have that carving ability. right about in the middle is about that 50-degree angle. That gives you kind of a good blend to it. And some trucks even offer a flippable hanger. The hanger is just this piece right here, kind of the wheels connect to, has the axle. And a couple companies like Bear and Randall make trucks that you actually can flip that. That way you have it in one position, which is nice, the carvy style, giving you tight lines. You also can flip that around for a little bit more stability in case you're doing a little bit bigger hill. This allows you to really custom tune your ride to the specific style that you're going to be currently riding. Now, some people kind of get bored after a while. They're like, okay, it's kind of getting a little bit slow, and that could be dirty bearings, or maybe you just want some increased speed. Most of the longboards are kind of running with a stock bearing of about an ABX7 in a couple different forms, but there's always ways to advance that. We always recommend get the best bearing that you can afford. A lot of longboarding is going to come down to kind of getting speed and maintaining that. When you give a couple pushes and keep going for a while, you end up having a lot more fun. And when you're rolling down a slope, you'll pick up speed faster, and that can help you have a more fun time. So we always recommend get the best bearings that you can, and if you need some suggestions for a particular style or maybe a particular budget, just hit us up in the comments. Now, I know we went through a lot in this video, and there's a whole wide world of longboards out there, and we have specific videos on some of these boards. That way you can check out to get some more detailed info. You can always hit us up in the comments, and we're more than happy to help you out. Let us know what styles you're looking for, budget, anything, and we'll try to connect you to the right board that works for you. Again, I'm Chris J. Rosser from bcsurf.com. Hit us up in the comments, and as always, go forth and shred.